A sleepy summary of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. As we prepare for rest, please know this summary is a gentle introduction intended to honor, not simplify, the original narrative. It is my hope that these condensed words offer a calming companion and inspire you to explore the full brilliance of J.K. Rowling's original work. The true depth of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets extends far beyond what these few minutes can hold. Consider this a soft invitation to experience the richness of the story itself. It is summertime. The whole long, drowsy, golden kind of summer, the kind that goes on and on like a slow river. Harry Potter is 12 years old now, and he is spending his holiday in a perfectly ordinary house on a perfectly ordinary street called Privet Drive, except that nothing about Harry Potter is ordinary at all. He is a wizard, you see, a real one, and he has a lightning bolt scar on his forehead and a whole magical world waiting for him on the other side of summer. But for now he is stuck in a small bedroom with his owl Hedwig, and he is waiting for the summer to end. The Dursleys, Harry's aunt and uncle, and their very round son Dudley, do not like Harry very much. They don't like his owl, they don't like his trunk full of spellbooks, and they especially don't like being reminded that magic is real. So Harry keeps to himself mostly. He sits at his window in the evenings and watches the sun go down over the neighborhood, and he counts the days until he can go back to school. One night, Harry comes downstairs to find that the house is very tidy, tidier than usual, which means the Dursleys are having an important dinner party. Uncle Vernon has a business guest coming, a man named Mr. Mason, and everything must be perfect. Harry is told in no uncertain terms to stay in his room and make absolutely no noise and pretend he does not exist. So Harry goes upstairs and sits on his bed and listens to the distant sound of voices below, and it is all very quiet and boring and a little lonely. And that is when he discovers, sitting on his bed as if it has always been there, a small creature with enormous green eyes and bat-like ears and a tiny pillowcase worn as a dress. This is Dobby. Dobby is a house elf. And Dobby has come with a warning. Dobby speaks in a strange, formal, third-person way that is a little bit like hearing someone tell a story about themselves. He says things like Dobby has come to warn Harry Potter, and Dobby has heard terrible things. He trembles when he speaks. His eyes are enormous and full of a deep, sincere emotion that is almost impossible to look at without feeling rather tender inside. Dobby wants Harry to stay home from Hogwarts this year. Something terrible, he says, is going to happen at Hogwarts. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened before. It will be opened again. Harry Potter must not go back. Harry, of course, says he has to go back. Hogwarts is the only real home he has. And so Dobby, with great sadness and with a determination that is both irritating and oddly touching, picks up the pudding that Aunt Petunia made for the dinner party and holds it over the kitchen floor and threatens to drop it if Harry will not promise to stay home. Harry will not promise, and so the pudding falls. The dinner party is a disaster. The Masons leave. Uncle Vernon is furious. And then an owl arrives from the Ministry of Magic informing Harry that he is not allowed to use magic outside of school, which is deeply unfair since it was Dobby who dropped the pudding and not Harry at all. Uncle Vernon is delighted by this. He had not known before that Harry wasn't allowed to use magic at home. Armed with this new knowledge, he locks Harry's owl in her cage and puts bars on Harry's bedroom window and locks the door at night, and Harry is a prisoner on Privet Drive. But not for long, because not long after, very late at night, there is a sound outside Harry's barred window, a rumbling, clanking, wheezing sort of sound. And when Harry looks out, he sees a turquoise flying car hovering beside the house, and leaning out of the front windows are 3 red-haired boys with freckles and identical grins. This is Ron Weasley, Harry's best friend, and his twin brothers Fred and George. They have come to rescue him. Quietly, very, very quietly, in the thick warm dark of a summer night, they hook Harry's trunk to the back of the car and pull Hedwig's cage free from under the floorboard and help Harry slip through the bars of his window, which magic has made loose without anyone noticing. They drive up into the night sky, up above the rooftops and the street lamps, up into the cool darkness where the stars are spread out like 1,000 sleepy eyes. Harry leans back in his seat and breathes the night air and feels, for the first time all summer, free. The Weasley house is called the Burrow, and it is one of the coziest places imaginable. It is an old house that has clearly been added to many times over the years in ways that do not quite line up properly, so it leans a little to one side and has too many staircases and rooms in unexpected places. It smells of something good cooking, and it is full of the low warm sounds of a big family living all together. Garden gnomes live in the garden and must be de-gnomed occasionally, which consists of grabbing them by the ankles and spinning them around and throwing them over the fence, which they don't seem to mind very much. Harry sleeps in Ron's room, which is full of orange Chudley Cannons posters and a chess set and a general cheerful disorder that feels very comforting. He sleeps long and deep and well, the way you sleep when you are somewhere safe. In the mornings there is a big round table in the kitchen and Mrs. Weasley bustling about with her wand, enchanting dishes to wash themselves, and plates piling themselves with toast and eggs, and the warm sound of everyone talking at once. Ron's sister Ginny, who is 1 year younger than the boys, blushes every time she sees Harry and then disappears. She has apparently had a crush on him for some time. She is small and red-haired and rather sweet. Ron's other brother's Percy, who is pompous and very concerned with his position as a school prefect, and the twins Fred and George, who are funny and chaotic in equal measure, are also there. And then there is Arthur Weasley, Ron's dad, who is endlessly fascinated by Muggle objects and keeps a collection of plugs in his shed, even though he doesn't entirely understand what they do. Just before term begins, they all go to Diagon Alley to buy their school things. They take a series of magical fireplaces using Floo powder. Harry, who has never done this before, gets the address wrong in a tumbling, confusing rush of ash and soot, and ends up spitting himself out of a fireplace in the wrong shop, in a part of the city called Nocturne Alley, which is a shadowy, unpleasant sort of street full of dark magic objects for sale. Harry hides inside a cabinet full of skulls. He watches through the door slats as Draco Malfoy and his father arrive, and he hears them speaking in low, conspiratorial voices about something. He cannot make out all the words, but the tone is enough. Something is being passed from the Malfoys to someone else. Something is being arranged. Eventually Hagrid finds Harry and guides him back to Diagon Alley, where the sunlight is bright and the shops are cheerful and there are ice cream cones and new owls in cages and shelves full of interesting things. They find Hermione Granger there, too, Harry's other best friend, with her parents. Hermione has bushy hair and very bright eyes, and she has already read all her new school books even though school hasn't started yet. She is that kind of person. It is very good to see her. At the bookshop there is chaos because a very famous author is there signing copies of his new textbook. This is Gilderoy Lockhart, who has a magnificent head of golden hair and perfect white teeth, and an extraordinary amount of self-confidence. He is, apparently, the new defense against the dark arts teacher at Hogwarts. He grabs Harry for a photograph without being asked, and the flashbulbs go off, and Harry stands there feeling rather dazzled and confused. Lockhart is the sort of person who takes up a great deal of space in a room. Outside the bookshop, the Weasleys and the Malfoys have a run-in, and Mr. Malfoy says something cold and cutting about the Weasleys' poverty, and the whole thing becomes quite tense before it is over. Arthur and Lucius Malfoy clearly cannot stand each other. Draco looks at Harry with pale, flat eyes. And then they go their separate ways, and the unpleasantness fades back into the ordinary noise of the busy street. The morning of September 1st comes, golden and slightly misty, and there is the glorious chaos of King's Cross Station, trolleys and trunks and cages with animals, and then the magical barrier between platforms 9 and 10, which you pass through by walking directly at it with great confidence, which is easier said than done the first time. Harry has done it before. He goes through without trouble. He finds the Hogwarts Express waiting, all red and shining, breathing steam into the cool morning air, and he finds a compartment and waits for Ron. But Ron doesn't come. Ron, along with Fred and George, arrives too late and the barrier is sealed against them. So Harry is on the train without his best friend, and Ron is on the platform without a way to get to school. And so Ron and Harry do something that seems in the moment like a reasonable solution. They take the flying car. It is a long journey by car to Hogwarts in Scotland. Night falls, stars come out. The car putters along. They doze a little. The invisibility booster, which should keep the car hidden, keeps breaking in and out, so anyone looking up at the sky at the right moment might see a turquoise car flying silently overhead, and there are indeed 2 muggles who see it and write to the newspaper about it. But since muggles are not supposed to notice magical things, they mostly just dismiss it afterward. They arrive at Hogwarts very late at night, and things go wrong. The car, which has had enough of being a flying car, chooses this moment to give up entirely. It deposits Harry and Ron on the grounds, and then drives off into the forbidden forest, engine fading to nothing, taillights disappearing among the dark trees. Ron's wand has been damaged in the journey, and it is behaving erratically. And they have been seen. They land right in front of the Whomping Willow, a very large and extremely violent tree that proceeds to attack them both before they can get clear. They are summoned to Professor Snape's office, where Snape looks at them with his usual expression of cold displeasure, and lays before them a copy of the Evening Prophet with their flying car stunt printed on the front page. He is clearly very much hoping they will be expelled, but they are not expelled. Professor Dumbledore, the headmaster, appears, and Professor McGonagall, and there are letters sent to their families, and they are each given a detention, but they remain at school. Harry eats cold supper in Professor McGonagall's office, and feels the warmth of the castle around him and thinks, "I am back. I am home." The dormitory is as he left it, 4-poster beds with deep red curtains and warm candlelight, and the comfortable sound of Neville breathing in the next bed. Harry lies down under his covers and the pillow is exactly right and the sheets are cool and then warm and the ceiling of the dormitory is dark and high above him and he closes his eyes and lets the long day go. Hogwarts settles back into its rhythms. Lessons begin. The staircases continue to move when you least expect it. The portraits continue to murmur to each other in their frames. The ghosts drift through walls at inopportune moments. Peeves the poltergeist drops things on people from above and cackles. Gilderoy Lockhart, it turns out, is an exhausting teacher. His classroom is covered in large pictures of himself, all of which smile and wave. His defense against the dark arts lessons are mostly opportunities for him to talk about his own adventures, which he does at extraordinary length and with tremendous enthusiasm. For their first lesson he releases a cage full of Cornish pixies, small, electric blue, shrieking creatures, as a demonstration, and they immediately escape and hang Neville Longbottom from a chandelier and reduce the classroom to chaos. Lockhart tries a spell to round them up and it doesn't work at all. He has to be rescued largely by Hermione. This is, they will later understand, rather a pattern with Lockhart. Quidditch practice resumes under the captaincy of Oliver Wood, who approaches the sport with the kind of passionate commitment that other people usually reserve for things like medicine or fighting wars. It rains during the first practice. It rains very hard. Harry is the seeker, the player who flies faster than everyone and looks for a tiny golden ball called the snitch, and he hangs in the wet air above the pitch in the dark and peers through the rain and tries to concentrate. And then the Slytherin team arrives, led by Draco Malfoy, who smiles his thin cold smile and announces that the Slytherin team all have new broomsticks, Nimbus 2001s, which his father paid for. This gift comes with the condition that Draco himself becomes the new Slytherin seeker, which is how money sometimes works in the world. Malfoy looks at Harry and calls Hermione a mudblood. The word falls on the air like something dropped on stone. Mudblood. It is a foul thing to say, a slur against witches and wizards of non-magical parents, calling their blood dirty. The whole Gryffindor team goes very still and very tense. Ron, who is already having trouble with his broken wand, tries to hex Draco and the spell backfires, and he spends the rest of the afternoon burping slugs behind the groundskeeper Hagrid's hut. Hagrid pats him on the back and gives him tea and explains to Harry and Hermione, very quietly, just how bad the word Malfoy used really is. Term rolls on. Leaves fall and the castle fills with the smell of wood smoke and pumpkin. In the evenings, candles float above the long tables in the great hall and the food appears, and the older students talk and the younger ones listen. And it feels ancient and warm in the way that only places that have been inhabited for a very long time can feel. Then comes the night of nearly headless Nick's Death Day party, a spectral celebration held in a dungeon, and Harry, Ron, and Hermione attend out of politeness. It is cold and dim and the ghostly food smells of rot and the assembled ghosts drift about looking mournfully at nothing in particular. Harry is not enjoying himself, and then he hears something, a voice in the walls, a cold, sliding, hissing voice that says things like, "Rip, tear, kill," and that seems to be moving through the castle itself. Only Harry can hear it. No one else hears anything at all. Disturbed, Harry follows the voice upstairs and through corridors, up toward the second floor, and then they come around a corner and stop. The corridor is flooded. Water spreads across the stone floor in a dark gleaming sheet. And on the walls, in what looks like dark red paint but isn't paint at all, someone has written, "The chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air beware." And below the message, hanging by its tail from a torch bracket, is Mrs. Norris, Filch's cat, hanging stiff and rigid and seemingly dead. Filch arrives moments later, and Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall and Snape, and a great crowd of students spilling out of the Halloween feast. And there Harry stands in the middle of it all with Ron and Hermione, looking very guilty despite being entirely innocent. Dumbledore examines Mrs. Norris and announces that she is not dead, she is petrified, and she is taken away to be treated. Draco Malfoy, visible at the edge of the crowd, smiles a slow smile and says, looking at Harry, "Enemies of the air, beware. You'll be next, mudbloods." The castle becomes anxious after that night. Teachers walk in pairs. Older students escort younger ones through the corridors. The words on the wall have been cleaned off, but everyone remembers them. The question hangs in the air like cold smoke. Who opened the chamber? What is the air? What lives inside? History of magic, taught by the ghost Professor Binns in his famous droning monotone, the kind of voice that turns all information into the sound of a very distant lullaby, does yield one important piece of information. The legend of the Chamber of Secrets says that Salazar Slytherin, one of Hogwarts' 4 founders, built a hidden chamber beneath the school before his falling out with the other founders. Inside the chamber he placed a monster that only his true heir could control, that would, when the time came, finish his work of purging Hogwarts of those he considered unworthy to study magic. Everyone considered unworthy in Slytherin's view was Muggle-born. The monster, the voice in the walls, the petrified cat. Harry, Hermione and Ron begin to think these things must be connected. Then Quidditch. The first match of the season, Gryffindor versus Slytherin, which is always intense and sometimes almost violent. Harry is up on his broomstick in the grey autumn sky, circling high, scanning, looking for the snitch. And then something hits him in the elbow, a bludger, the heavy iron ball that flies around the pitch trying to knock players off their brooms. But this bludger is different. This bludger has been tampered with. Instead of flying at different players randomly, it has fixed itself entirely on Harry. It chases him around the pitch with murderous persistence while Harry tries to stay ahead of it and also somehow find the snitch. He finds the snitch. He dives. He catches it just before the bludger hits him, and instead the bludger smashes into his arm and his arm goes limp and horrible and very wrong. Gryffindor wins. Harry is sitting on the ground with a broken arm and Lockhart rushes over and offers to fix it, and Harry, somewhat dazed, agrees, which is a mistake. Lockhart casts his spell, and Harry's arm does something deeply unpleasant. All the bones disappear. Not just the break, all of them. His arm is now a sort of boneless, rubbery appendage that just sort of flops. Lockhart looks momentarily embarrassed and then brightens and says something about regrowing bones overnight being perfectly possible. Harry spends the night in the hospital wing. It is uncomfortable because the potion Madame Pomfrey gives him to regrow the bones is called Skeel Grow, and it feels like being jabbed with hot knitting needles from the inside. He lies in his bed in the quiet dark of the hospital wing, listening to the small sounds of the castle at night, and eventually he falls into an uneasy sleep. He wakes to find Dobby sitting by his bed. Dobby, his enormous eyes glistening, admits with great guilt that it was he who sealed the barrier at King's Cross and he who tampered with the bludger, not to hurt Harry, but to make Harry want to go home, to keep him away from the terrible thing that is going to happen at Hogwarts. Harry, naturally exhausted and sore and not particularly charitable at this hour, is a bit annoyed. But before Dobby can explain further, another small figure appears in the hospital wing and Dobby vanishes. The small figure is a second-year student named Colin Creevey, who has a camera and a great enthusiasm for Harry Potter. Colin is petrified. He lies on a stretcher carried by Professor McGonagall, his hands still raised as if he is taking a photograph, his camera fused shut by whatever did this to him. Dumbledore and McGonagall speak in low, grave voices above him. "It's the same as with the cat," Dumbledore says. "It's petrified, and then the Chamber of Secrets has been opened again." Harry closes his eyes and listens to them carry Colin away, and the hospital wing is quiet, and outside the tall windows the sky is dark and full of stars, and the castle makes its old stone sounds around him and he tries to sleep. Hermione comes up with a plan. It is a complicated, ambitious, somewhat illegal plan, and it involves a potion called Polyjuice Potion, which allows the drinker to transform temporarily into another person. The plan is this: Draco Malfoy seems to know things he shouldn't. He said enemies of the heir with great satisfaction on Halloween night. He is the obvious suspect for the heir of Slytherin. So they will brew Polyjuice Potion, transform themselves into 3 Slytherin students, go to the Slytherin common room, and ask Draco Malfoy directly what he knows. Simple, except that Polyjuice Potion takes a month to brew and requires ingredients that are locked in Professor Snape's private stores. Harry and Ron steal the ingredients with the help of a bit of luck and Hermione's planning. The potion begins to brew in a disused bathroom on the 2nd floor that belongs, more or less, to the ghost of a miserable, wailing student named Moaning Myrtle, who died in this bathroom some years ago and has stayed ever since, haunting the U-bend of a toilet and lamenting her fate to anyone who will listen. The bathroom is always slightly flooded and always smells of old damp and the taps drip, but Myrtle herself doesn't bother them too much as long as they're polite. Meanwhile, the term continues. A dueling club is started, led by Lockhart and Snape, which does not go well for Lockhart. Harry and Draco are paired together, and Draco casts a snake conjuring spell, which produces a real snake that slithers across the floor toward a boy named Justin Finch-Fletchley. And Harry speaks to it, talks to the snake, in a hissing fluid language, trying to tell it to stop. And the snake does stop. But everyone watching goes very strange and quiet, and afterward Ron and Hermione explain to Harry what has happened. What he did is called Parseltongue, the language of serpents, and it is associated in wizarding tradition with dark wizards, the most infamous of whom was Voldemort himself. Harry had no idea he was speaking it, he thought he was just speaking. The rumour spreads through the school like cold water spreading across stone. Harry Potter is the heir of Slytherin. This is a lonely time. Students edge away from Harry in corridors. Justin Finch-Fletchley won't look at him. And then Justin is found petrified, along with the ghost nearly headless Nick, who is an interesting case since he is already dead, and a ghost being petrified apparently means he becomes even less substantial than usual, frozen into an almost transparent statue of himself. Harry is found standing over them in the corridor, which naturally makes everything worse. He is brought to Professor Dumbledore's office while everything is sorted out. He sits alone in that high circular room and looks at the headmaster's belongings, a silver instrument that puffs small clouds of smoke, a perch where a very old sickly bird sits hunched and waits. And then the sick bird catches fire. Harry watches in horror as the flames consume it and the bird reduces to a pile of ash. And then from the ash something moves. A tiny wrinkled ugly pink thing climbs out. A baby bird. Dumbledore arrives and tells Harry cheerfully that this is Fawkes, his phoenix, and that phoenix song was known to increase the courage of the pure of heart. The tiny ugly bird blinks at Harry with bright eyes. It will be beautiful again in time. Christmas comes to Hogwarts. Most students go home. Harry and Ron stay, and most of the castle empties out and becomes even more beautiful in its quiet state, snow settling on the turrets, frost on the windows, fires crackling in empty common rooms. They collect the hairs they need for the Polyjuice Potion from 2 Slytherin students named Crabbe and Goyle, which they do by putting sleeping draught in chocolate cakes, and leaving the cakes in a conspicuous place where they will be found and eaten, which works very well. On a cold, quiet New Year's night, Harry, Ron and Hermione drink the Polyjuice Potion in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. It tastes, Harry thinks, like overcooked cabbage. And then the transformation happens, which is described in enough detail to understand that it is deeply unpleasant, bones moving, skin shifting, the whole self reshaping into someone else. Harry becomes Crabbe. Ron becomes Goyle. Hermione disappears into a toilet cubicle and there is a strange, prolonged silence, and then a voice that sounds wrong says she's not coming because something has gone badly wrong with her transformation. Harry and Ron go to the Slytherin dungeons. Draco finds them almost immediately and assumes they are Crabbe and Goyle and begins talking freely. He does not know who opened the chamber. He is not the heir. He talks about Slytherin's monster and about mudbloods deserving what they get, but none of it is the confession they were hoping for. The potion begins to wear off. Harry and Ron make excuses and leave, and they run back through the corridors as their disguises begin to melt away, reassembling themselves back into Harry and Ron with great unpleasantness. They find Hermione in the hospital wing. She has been there since they left her. Her Polyjuice Potion was made with a cat hair. She had taken it from Millicent Bulstrode's robe, not realizing it belonged to a cat. And she has been partially transformed into a cat-human hybrid, with fur and pointed ears and a tail, and it will take some weeks to reverse. She lies in her hospital bed with the curtains drawn around her and she is mortified and also, Harry notices, slightly making a purring sound when she is comfortable, which she seems very embarrassed about. February. The castle is cold and the grounds are bare and the sky is a low grey ceiling above the turrets. Harry finds a diary. It is a small, ordinary-looking diary, the kind with a lock on the front, and it belongs, according to the name written inside, to someone called T.M. Riddle. It is 50 years old and appears to be completely blank. Harry knows he should not trust something that thinks for itself and has no brain, as Dumbledore once wisely observed about books. But the diary is blank and seemingly harmless, and it was lying in Moaning Myrtle's flooded bathroom, and he is curious. He writes in it, and the diary writes back. In clear, careful handwriting, the diary introduces itself. Tom Riddle, a student at Hogwarts 50 years ago. And Tom Riddle tells Harry that he can show him, not just tell him, but actually show him, the night the chamber was last opened. Harry is very curious now. He writes, "Show me." And the diary swallows him whole. He falls into a memory. He is in Hogwarts as it was 50 years ago, the same staircases and corridors but different faces, different robes, and a younger version of someone he will eventually recognize. A younger Tom Riddle, dark-haired, handsome, with an odd stillness in his face, is bringing a boy to Professor Dippet's office. The boy is named Hagrid, and he is carrying a box with something living in it. Tom Riddle is accusing him of opening the chamber. Hagrid says it wasn't him, says the monster only ever killed a chicken, but Tom Riddle is very sure and very cold, and in Harry's memory of this memory he watches young Hagrid being expelled. And he watches young Tom Riddle receive a medal for special services to the school, and then the memory releases him and he comes back to himself in the present, lying on his bed, the diary in his hands. He thinks, so it was Hagrid who opened the chamber 50 years ago. But Hagrid is their friend. Hagrid is the kindest man Harry knows. It doesn't fit, he doesn't believe it. He files it away and tries to think about it sensibly. But then the diary is stolen from his dormitory. Whoever took it does not want Harry looking at it more closely. And shortly after that, Hermione is petrified. She is found in the corridor with a small mirror in her hand. She had taken to carrying a mirror around corners before she turned them so she could see what was coming, and she is found rigid and white and utterly still. She is taken to the hospital wing, and she lies there unmoving, and Harry sits beside her for a while and doesn't say anything because there is nothing to say. The castle becomes afraid now. Parents begin withdrawing their children. Teachers increase their patrols. The air in the corridors is thick with anxiety, the way air gets before a storm. Harry and Ron find, before Hermione was petrified, that she had torn a page from a library book and kept it in her closed hand. They pry it free carefully. She had circled words on it: pipes, spiders flee it, the basilisk. And she had written one word in the margin, underlined twice, speaking, a basilisk. A giant serpent, the king of serpents whose gaze is lethal. Those who looked it directly in the eye would die instantly, but those who glimpsed it through some reflection or through another's eyes or through a transparency would only be petrified. Mrs. Norris saw it in the water on the flooded floor, Colin through his camera, Justin through nearly headless Nick, Nick through his own ghostly near transparency, Hermione through her little mirror, and the basilisk travels through the pipes. It lives in the plumbing of the castle. Only a Parselmouth, only someone who speaks the language of snakes could control it. Only the heir of Slytherin could command it to kill. They think, so Harry is not the heir, he speaks Parseltongue but he is not Voldemort's heir. Someone else is giving the basilisk its orders. But who? They are thinking about this when Dumbledore is suspended. The Board of School Governors, led behind the scenes by Lucius Malfoy, have used the climate of fear to force Dumbledore out. Dumbledore leaves with a kind of quiet dignity, but he looks at Harry before he goes and says very clearly, "Help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it." And then he goes, and the castle feels different without him. Colder, less sure of itself. On the same night, Hagrid is taken by the Ministry of Magic. They arrive in Dumbledore's office, a minister named Cornelius Fudge, round and flustered, who seems to feel that arresting Hagrid will demonstrate that something is being done. And Hagrid is to be taken to Azkaban, the wizard prison, just as a precaution. Before he goes, Hagrid says in a very careful and deliberate tone that anyone who needed to find out something would only have to follow the spiders. And anyone who wanted to help would have to harvest mandrakes. The mandrakes are almost ready. When they are mature, they can make a restorative draught that will cure the petrified students. Hagrid goes, and the castle is very empty of its warmth. The spiders. Harry had noticed them over the past weeks, columns of spiders in the corridors, all heading in the same direction, toward a window out across the grounds into the Forbidden Forest. Following them means going into the Forbidden Forest at night, which is against the rules and also frightening, but Harry and Ron go anyway. The forest is dark and deep, and full of sounds that live just at the edge of hearing. They follow the spiders, and the spiders lead them to a hollow in the earth. A vast dark hollow full of spiders, more than they have ever seen. A whole heaving, rustling universe of spiders in every size. And in the centre of this, in a web of silk and shadow, is Aragog, an ancient acromantula, a spider the size of a car, with milky blind eyes and a voice like gravel rolling in a bucket. Aragog was Hagrid's creature, raised from an egg 50 years ago, the creature Hagrid was blamed for bringing to Hogwarts. Aragog is very old and very calm, and he tells them that he was not the monster of the chamber, that the chamber monster is a thing spiders fear above all others. He does not name it. He does say, with a kind of gentle regret, that his children are very hungry, and that he can see no reason not to let them eat Harry and Ron. The spider children surge forward. The flying car saves them. It comes growling out of the dark forest, headlights blazing, scattering spiders, and Harry and Ron scramble in and the doors slam and the car drives them back through the trees and deposits them on the edge of the grounds, and then drives back into the forest. They sit in the dark and breathe for a while. Spring comes. The castle is still afraid, but the mandrakes are almost ready, and there is a faint hope of waking the petrified students. Then there is a Quidditch match, Gryffindor versus Hufflepuff, and a message reaches Harry in the air, carried by Professor McGonagall, asking him to come at once. The match is cancelled. Harry and Ron come down to find the following information being passed through the school in the low, tense murmur of a crisis. A girl has been taken into the Chamber of Secrets and may already be dead. The girl is Ginny Weasley. There is a message on the wall again. Her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever. Ron's face goes absolutely white. Harry does not say anything. They stand in the corridor and look at each other, and they know that this is not a mystery to be puzzled out at leisure, not any more. Ginny is inside the chamber. Tonight, now, they go to Professor Lockhart, who has apparently promised the staff that he knows where the chamber is and how to stop the monster. They find him in his office in the middle of packing. He is planning to leave. He had not the faintest idea, he admits, where the chamber is or what the monster is. He had merely been hoping to bluff through until everything was resolved by someone else. This is a devastating revelation about a man who has spent a year talking about his own bravery. Harry and Ron take Lockhart with them. They go to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom because they had always wondered about this bathroom, because it was always flooded and the basilisk travels through the pipes, and Myrtle died here, and Hermione's page said pipes, and the entry to the chamber must be here somewhere. Myrtle confirms it. She died looking into a pair of great yellow eyes that came from one of the sinks. Harry examines the sinks and finds a small snake engraved on one of the taps. He speaks to it in Parseltongue. The sink sinks. The floor opens. Below is a wide dark pipe going down at a very steep angle. Harry goes first. He drops into the dark. The slide is long and fast and ends in a heap of small animal bones that crunch beneath him. The Chamber of Secrets is underground in a way that feels like being under the bottom of the world, where there is only cold stone and utter dark, and the dripping of ancient water. There are long stone tunnels with torches at long intervals that give just enough light to see the walls, which are carved with serpents. The air is cold and very still and very old. Something happens to Lockhart. He has been stumbling along behind them, and now he grabs Ron's broken wand and announces that he has been planning all along to obliviate them both, to wipe their memories of everything they've seen. And then he'll claim he heroically entered the chamber alone but was unable to save the girl. He points Ron's broken wand. He says the memory charm. The wand backfires, which is what broken wands tend to do, and the memory charm hits Lockhart himself with enormous force. He goes down in a heap. When he comes back up, he has no idea who he is, where he is, or what has happened. He is entirely, cheerfully, emptily amnesiac. He looks around the tunnel with mild, pleasant interest and says it's quite like a dream, isn't it? There is a cave-in. Rock falls and seals the tunnel behind them, separating Harry on one side from Ron and the incapacitated Lockhart on the other. Ron will not be able to come further. Harry goes alone. He goes alone through the dark tunnels. He goes under arching stone serpents. He presses forward through the cold and the silence. And then the final door, 2 stone serpents, coiled, mouth to tail, that open when he speaks to them in Parsil tongue. And beyond the door, the chamber itself. The Chamber of Secrets is long and dimly lit by a greenish light that seems to come from nowhere and everywhere. Stone pillars run the length of it, carved with more serpents, and at the far end is a great stone face. Salazar Slytherin's face, huge and ancient, carved into the chamber wall. The mouth is slightly open. Something lives in the dark behind those carved stone teeth, and on the floor at Slytherin's feet is Ginny. She is very still and very pale. Harry runs to her. He kneels beside her. Her skin is cold. He says her name. He shakes her shoulder. Her eyes don't open. He says, "Ginny, please wake up." And then someone says behind him, "She won't wake." Harry stands and turns. There is a boy standing by one of the pillars. He is tall and dark-haired, and he holds Harry's wand loosely in one hand. He is Tom Riddle. He is not quite there the way solid things are there. He has a slight transparency, a faint shimmer, as if he is a very good memory rather than a real person. He looks at Harry with those still, intelligent eyes. He is calm, he is comfortable, he has been waiting. Harry asks where he found a wand. Riddle holds Harry's own wand up and says softly that it was from Harry himself when Harry arrived. The wand slid from Harry's pocket while he was attending to Ginny, and Riddle has been holding it since. Harry asks why. Riddle says that he is going to kill him. He says it without inflection as a statement of simple fact. Harry asks what Riddle has to do with any of this, and Riddle tells him. He tells him slowly with a kind of satisfaction, the way people tell things they have waited a long time to tell. He has been living in the diary all these years, a memory preserved in the pages, gaining strength slowly. And when Ginny Weasley found the diary and began writing in it, he began to drain her life force into himself. He let her in slowly, showed her things, told her things, gave her hints, and she poured herself into his pages, and he became more real, more solid, more present. and eventually he used her to open the chamber to set the basilisk free, though Ginny remembered nothing of what she had done during these blackout episodes and was terrified of it. She suspected the diary toward the end and tried to get rid of it, threw it down a girl's bathroom drain, but the drain led to Hogwarts plumbing, and from there the diary found Harry. And Riddle says something else. He says that he wants to show Harry something. He writes his full name in the air with Harry's wand, the letters hang there, shining, Tom Marvolo Riddle, and then he rearranges them. The letters spin and settle into a new order, I am Lord Voldemort. Harry looks at this, he understands. Tom Riddle is the boy who would become Lord Voldemort, his is the journal, his is the plan. His is the basilisk, sleeping in the dark pipes of the castle for 50 years, waiting for an heir to call it forth. Riddle Voldemort in his boyish, beautiful form summons the basilisk. The great stone mouth opens. Something moves in the darkness behind those carved teeth. Something very old and very large and very quiet begins to emerge. Harry squeezes his eyes shut. He will die if he looks at the basilisk directly. He keeps his eyes closed and he thinks desperately of what Dumbledore said, help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it, and he thinks it truly with everything he has. He asks, and there is a sound, a rushing sound high and clear descending from somewhere above, and then a flash of red and gold and something lands on Harry's shoulder. Fawkes, the phoenix. Dumbledore's phoenix has come, carrying in his beak the old battered sorting hat. The hat falls at Harry's feet. Harry puts it on, he thinks please something help and reaches inside. His fingers close around something hard and cold and long. He pulls it out. It is a sword, gleaming, silver, rubied at the hilt. It is the sword of Godric Gryffindor, and it is enormous, and Harry is 12 years old, and he holds it anyway. Fawkes has done something extraordinary. He has flown at the basilisk and clawed its eyes out. The basilisk is now blind. Its gaze, which would kill, cannot land on Harry. Harry opens his eyes. He sees the great serpent writhing in the half-dark head swinging from side to side, and he does something 12-year-old children should not have to do. He charges. The fight in the Chamber of Secrets is desperate and awful and brief in the way that really intense things are brief. Time stretches and compresses at the same moment. Harry runs at the basilisk, sword raised, and the basilisk rears back and it strikes. Its fang catches Harry in the arm, punching deep through skin and muscle, and Harry drives the sword through the roof of the basilisk's mouth and up into its brain. The basilisk collapses. The crash of it shakes the chamber. The silence that follows is absolute. Harry sits against a pillar. He looks at his arm. The fang is still in it. He can already feel the venom. Basilisk venom is among the deadliest substances in the magical world. It is working fast. His arm is going numb and hot at the same time, and there is a sound like being very far underwater. He knows he is dying. He pulls the fang out, which he knows makes it worse. Nothing to do now but wait. Riddle watches him. Riddle is almost opaque now, almost fully solid, drawing his reality from Ginny's fading life force. He says with genuine curiosity, "You'll be dead in minutes," and Harry Potter dies not even knowing why he lived in the first place. There is a sound like wings. Fawkes lands beside Harry and the phoenix lowers its head and its tears fall on Harry's wound. Phoenix tears which have healing powers. The tears fall and the burning stops and the numbness retreats and the wound begins to close. Harry watches this happen with the stunned disbelief of someone watching something impossible. Riddle raises the wand. Harry grabs the basilisk's fang from the floor and drives it into the diary. The diary screams, an ink scream, black liquid pouring from the stab wound like dark blood, and Riddle screams with it, his almost solid form breaking apart, and the screams spiral down into nothing, and then there is silence. The diary lies on the chamber floor with a hole through it, leaking ink, harmless now empty. Ginny gasps awake. She sees Harry. She sees the dead basilisk. She bursts into tears and says she's so sorry, she didn't know what she was doing, she didn't mean to, she didn't understand. Harry tells her it's okay. He tells her gently, she is alive. Everything that matters about tonight is okay. They have to go. Fawkes carries them up through the chamber, up through the pipe, back through the sink in Myrtle's bathroom. Fawkes' tears, which apparently have saved Harry's life, can also support the weight of people flying, which is a very convenient property for a bird. They come up from under the castle into the warm candlelit corridors, and the solid ordinary world, and Harry breathes the air of Hogwarts, old stone and candles, and the faint smell of something good cooking somewhere. And he is alive, and it is over. Professors McGonagall and Dumbledore are in the hospital wing. McGonagall, when she sees them all alive, has to sit down. Dumbledore looks at Harry with his bright blue eyes and his half-moon spectacles, and something moves through his expression, not surprise, but something deeper and more careful than surprise. A recognition. Harry, he says, you must have shown me real loyalty in the chamber to have called Fawkes to you. Only real loyalty to me could have done it. He says this with a warmth that is the warmest thing Harry has felt in months. There is the matter of Ginny, who is still tearful and frightened and ashamed. She confesses to her parents, who have arrived, pale and crumpled with worry, that she was the one who opened the chamber, that she was the one who set the creature loose, that she wrote the messages on the wall. She couldn't help it, she says. She didn't know. Mrs. Weasley holds her very tightly. Mr. Weasley looks at Harry with eyes that say things that cannot be put into words. And then Lucius Malfoy arrives, with Dobby behind him, Dobby, small and miserable, with his tennis ball eyes downcast. Lucius Malfoy is coming to gloat about Dumbledore's removal, not knowing yet that everything has been resolved. Dumbledore informs him that the Board of Governors has voted him out as a governor, having discovered that he threatened the other 11 governors to get them to sign Dumbledore's suspension order. Malfoy is very smooth in his retreat, very cold, until Harry says, "It was you, wasn't it? You gave Ginny the diary. You slipped Tom Riddle's diary into her cauldron in Diagon Alley last summer in the bookshop. You knew what it was, you knew what it would do." Malfoy cannot deny it. He does not quite admit it either. But he looks at Harry with those pale eyes, and the look says everything. And then Harry looks at Dobby, at this small, frightened, loyal creature who has been working against Harry all year, not to harm him but to save him, because he knew what Malfoy had done and was terrified of what was coming. And Harry takes off his shoe and removes his sock and stuffs the sock inside Tom Riddle's ruined diary and hands it to Lucius Malfoy, who hands it without thinking to Dobby. Dobby holds the sock. He holds the sock. He looks at the sock with enormous eyes that begin to overflow, because when a house elf's master gives them clothing, any piece of clothing, deliberately, the house elf is freed. Lucius Malfoy has accidentally freed Dobby by handing him a sock. Dobby looks up at Harry with an expression that has no adequate word for it. "Harry Potter freed Dobby," he says very quietly. Harry Potter is greater by far than Dobby knew. Malfoy moves toward Harry in rage and Dobby raises one long finger and Malfoy goes flying backward down the corridor and disappears. Dobby looks after him, then he looks at Harry. "Dobby is free," he says, and he disappears with a crack. The petrified students are revived with the completed restorative draught made from the mature mandrakes. Hermione comes back to herself in the hospital wing with the kind of bright-eyed urgency of someone who has been waiting to say something for a while. She hugs Harry and Ron and immediately says she worked it out, a basilisk. The pipes, it was all in the library all along. She says this with some satisfaction. Justin Finch-Fletchley is revived. Nearly headless Nick drifts back into his usual slightly offended state. Colin Creevey is revived and immediately asks if Harry will sign his camera. Some things do not change. Exams are cancelled, which everyone is delighted about except Hermione, who has spent months preparing for them and bursts into tears at the announcement, which she later describes as tears of relief and which Ron and Harry regard with some skepticism. The end-of-year feast is in the Great Hall, all candles and long tables and the smell of everything wonderful. And Hagrid comes in through the great doors, and there is a long-standing ovation that starts with Harry and Ron and sweeps through the whole room. And Hagrid turns very red and has to wipe his eyes with a large handkerchief. And he says something like, "Blimey," which is his usual way of expressing things that are too large for words. Lockhart does not attend the feast because he is in the hospital wing, still very pleasantly confused about who he is and will be for some time. He will never recover his memory. He will eventually write a book called Who Am I?, which some people find quite moving. The Hogwarts Express carries them home. The countryside slides by outside the train windows, green hills and small villages, and then slowly the outskirts of the city coming in, and Harry leans against the window and watches England pass and thinks about the year. He thinks about Dobby free somewhere wearing a sock. He thinks about Ginny sleeping in the next compartment who will be fine. He thinks about the diary, about Riddle's face, about the way the name rearranged itself. I am Lord Voldemort. He thinks about what it means to have been chosen by a monster. He thinks about what it means to still be here. Ron and Hermione are playing Exploding Snap. The cards go off in small bright bursts. Outside the window the sun is coming out from behind the clouds, and the fields are very green, and the train is warm, and there is the comfortable rhythmic sound of the engine. And Harry rests his head against the glass, and the green hills roll past, and his eyes grow heavy and his thoughts grow soft and slow. And the train carries them south, through the afternoon light toward summer. And the story rests.